Very flat? Is it a bit flat?
So very high, very flat.
Because of the cold.
No.
कराग्रे वज्रसंस्पर्शै नखैः शत्रुविदारिणे तीक्ष्णदंष्ट्राय दत्ताय पार्श्वभाय मङ्गलम्
कास्ट कास्ट करने के लिए टीवी इसे कास्ट करने के लिए क्या टीवी में डायरेक्टली कास्ट करने
Yeah, please share it on Zoom now.
हाँ टीवी में कास्ट कर
Hear me? The problem is here until it's YouTube, it's not
यूट्यूब को मैं उधर कर लूंगा, यूट्यूब को उधर कर लूंगा, डायरेक्ट लेके कास्ट कर देंगे तो हो जाएगा।
डायरेक्टली कैसे कास्ट करेंगे?
तो आप करते हो
आई कैन डू कनेक्ट।
हाँ वही। मेरे को जानना जरूरी है।
यशोदानन्दना प्रजनराञ्जना यशोदानन्दना प्रजनराञ्जना यमुनातिलावनचारि Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Hare Hare Rama. Yeah. Krishna. Yeah. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram.
Its divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ISKCON V.T. Acharya, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Ita Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Gaur. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the Lord Shri Lakshmi Shri Gauranga. Morning. See smiling faces of Vaishnava devotees. There's actually nothing more glorious than the smile on the face of the Vaishnava devotees. So this is text 18, chapter 10, chapter 10, text 18. And first I'll say the, the words and the definition, and then we'll chant the sloka. Sadhanam, we see repeat. Sadhanam,
Sharanam
of saintly persons. Samatittanam,
Samatittanam
of those who are equal to everyone.
are those who are equal to everyone.
Mukunda Charana Estinam,
Mukunda Charana Eshina.
whose only business is to serve Mukunda,
Only business is to serve Mukunda,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
Supreme Personality of God.
and who always aspire for devotional service. Upaksha, Upakshali,
Vakshaim,
neglecting the association.
neglecting the association.
Kim
In
what? Danastambari, oh, who's up there? Oh, so 17? Somehow I thought it was 18. Okay, so we're gonna start over again, because I had the wrong verse. Sorry about that. It happens. Okay, so text 17. My word translation. Daridrasya,
Vitrasya,
a person who is poverty stricken.
son of poverty stricken.
Eva,
Deva,
indeed,
indeed,
Yudhyate
Yudyate,
may easily associate.
may easily associate.
Bhagavatam,
Sarvam,
saintly persons.
saintly persons.
Samadarshana,
Samadarshana,
although sadhus are equal to everyone,
sadhus equal to everyone.
the poor and the rich, the poor man can take advantage of their association. Sabi, by the association of such saintly person. Shinoti reduces the original cause of material suffering. Tasham, the desire for material enjoyment. Tata, thereafter. Ahara, very soon. Vishudati, his material contamination is cleansed off. Darijasyaiva yujate. Darijasyaiva yujante. Darijasyaiva yujante. Sadhava Shadarshana. Sadhava Shadarshana. Sadhava Shadarshana. Sadhi Krishna Titantarsham. Sadhi Krishna Titam. Sadhi Krishna Titam Tarsham. Sadhi Krishna Titam Tarsham. Tata Aradhya Vyati. Tata Aradhya Vyati. Tata Aradhya Vyati. Daridrasyaiva yujante. Sadhava Samadarshina. Sadhishanoktitam tarsham. Tattva aradhishno jati.
Daridrasyaiva yujyante. Sadhava samadarshinaha. Sadvishinoti tam darsham. Tata arad vidushyate vishudyate.
Daridrasyaiva yujyante.
Daridrasyaiva yujyante.
Sadhava samadarshina.
Sadhava samadarshina.
Sadhishinoti tam tarsham.
Sadvishinoti tam darsham. Vishudyate.
Rudrasyaiva yujyante.
Daridrasyaiva yujyante. Sadhava samadarshina. Sadvishinoti tam darsham. Vishudyate.
Daridrasyaiva yujyante.
Daridrasyaiva yujyante. Sadhava samadarshina. Sadvishinoti tam darsham. Tata arad vishudyate. Daridrasyaiva yujyante. Sadhava samadarshinaha. Sadvishinoti tam darsham. Tata arad vishudyate.
Daridrasyaiva yujyante.
Daridrasyaiva yujyante.
Samadarshina.
Sadhava samadarshina.
Tantarsham.
Sadvishinoti tam darsham. Tata arad vishudyate.
Translation was Srila Prabhupada. Saintly persons may freely associate with those who are poverty-stricken, but not with those who are rich. A poverty-stricken man, by association with saintly persons, very soon becomes uninterested in material desires, and the dirty things within the core of his heart are cleansed away. Purport. It is said, Mahad Vichalanam Nirnam Grihinam Dinam Chetasam. Bhagavatam 8:4. The only business of a saintly person or a sannyasi, a person in a renounced order, is to preach Krishna consciousness. Sadhus, saintly persons, want to preach to both the rich and the poor, but the poor take more advantage of the sadhu's preaching than the rich do. A poor man receives the sadhus very quickly, offers them obeisances, and tries to take advantage of their presence, whereas a rich man keeps a big greyhound dog at his door so that no one can enter his home. He posts a sign saying, "Beware of dog," and he avoids the association of saintly persons, whereas a poor man keeps his door open for them, thus benefits by their association more than a rich man does. Because Narada Muni, in his previous life, was the poverty-stricken son of a maidservant, he got the association of saintly persons and later became the exalted Narada Muni. That was his actual experience. Therefore, he is now comparing the position of a poor man with that of a rich man. Satam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavanti hritarna sanataha sataraccha sanarashva bhargavatmani sadaratir bhaktiranusha krish anupramnishyati. This is a glorious verse from Bhagavatam 3:25-25, one of the exalted prayers of Queen Kunti. If one gets the advantage of association with saintly persons, by their instructions, one becomes more and more purified of material desires. Krishna Bahir Mata Haya Loka Vachapare Nikatasta Maya Tare Japatiya Dare, from the Prema Vivarta. Material life means that one forgets Krishna and that one increases in one's desires for sense gratification. But if one receives the advantages of instructions from saintly persons and forgets the importance of material desires, one is automatically purified. Cheto dharpana marjanam bhavat nirvapanam shastastika. And thus the core of a materialistic person's heart is purified. He cannot get rid of the pangs of bhava mahadavagni, the blazing fire of material existence. So he can repeat, saintly persons may freely associate with those who are poverty-stricken, but not with those who are rich. A poverty-stricken man, by association with saintly persons, very soon becomes uninterested in material desires, and the dirty things within the core of his heart are cleansed away. You all know this is chant. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastate Sutare Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Patitana Pavane Deo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Starting out the talking about saintly persons kind of associate with those who are poverty stricken, but not those who are very rich. So we have that example in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Anybody know what I may be thinking about here? With King Prataparita. And he wanted to have the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was a very, he was an exalted soul. He really was not a materialistic minded king, but he was a king. And as a king, you have to deal with everything because there's all kinds of situations are going on in the kingdom. And some of them are not particularly spiritualized. You know, you have to deal with all kinds of maybe some kind of activities that are criminal behavior or, you know, political agitations, etc. So it's not like the king, even if you are a very exalted soul, is all the time with his hand in the bead bag chanting Hare Krishna, you know. So he came to know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his heart was the heart of a devotee. And here was a devotee, and here was the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the role of a devotee. And a king knows about value. You know, like if he sees something valuable like a diamond, he knows this is very valuable. He knows how to respect and protect it. You know, he won't squander it. You know, modern example nowadays, maybe you have a very high level car, maybe you have like a Maserati. You're going to be very careful with that car, you know, has some value. So the king also knew the value of the Supreme Lord in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, high level spiritual value. And he wanted his association, and he wanted to serve him. This is a real king. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refused his invitation. His reason was, I'm a sannyasi. I'm going, you know, if I'm seen going to such a person, such a, you know, he was considering the king is a materialistic person. But he knew this king was not, but he had to give an example. So if I go there, it will look as if I'm just going for some materialistic reasons, and then other people may get the mindset. Mahaprabhu was taking the role of a devotee, and he wanted to infect everybody with devotional service. So if people see him associating with what is considered to be a materialistic person, then they'll think, oh, yeah, no big deal, and they may follow his example in other ways. So he refused. And the king was really heartbroken about that. And then eventually what happened was really wonderful. Well, the devotees were imploring on behalf of the king, and Mahaprabhu shut them down and he said, if you bother me one more time, I'll leave this place. He did that on a couple of occasions with other situations. So then they backed off. And the king was still heartbroken, you know. And he would do menial service. Just like we heard at Rath Yatra Festival, the king himself would go. He would sweep the street in front of the cart, in front of Lord Jagannath's cart. And when Mahaprabhu came to know that, he was feeling a little, more lenient. So what he did, instead of calling for the king, he called for the son of the king. So I think most everybody here, maybe except for Priya, has children, right? Is anybody here? So you know if somebody is affectionate towards your child or shows some attention towards your child, you're feeling very, in your heart, you're feeling very good about that. So this way, by bringing this son of the king was getting some satisfaction, but not fully satisfied. But still, his son got to see Mahaprabhu. Yeah, then it was after that he did the sweeping. So then Mahaprabhu could really see that this king was such a sincere, devout soul that he gave him his darshan. So I had an experience one time, kind of in the same way, that we were in Jaipur and Prabhupada was going to be heading up a very large outdoor program, a pandal, huge tent. Thousands of people were expected because these programs had already happened in other places and thousands of people would come to hear him speak. So this one was a little unusual because two god sisters had gone to Jaipur. And generally, we didn't do any tourist activities when we were with Prabhupada. We just stayed with him and did what we were directed to do. And Prabhupada went somewhere, then we would go. So at that point, we hadn't even been to Vrindavan yet, although we were in India, we even been in Delhi, so close, but we didn't even think to go off on our own. But they had heard about Govinda, the beautiful deity of Govinda, and they wanted to have his darshan. And so they went there, and they were very nicely received because at that point tourism had not developed very much in India. So to see two foreigners, two white-skinned foreigners, what to speak of two young ladies, but they weren't very old, especially the one she was like about maybe just almost 19 or 20, and very devout. And so they were captivated by these two ladies. And then the ladies were seeing how pious these people were. Like especially in those days, my God, if Mangal Arti, people would be racing, like running like anything to get to Govind Devji's Mandir. And that would be like just every day. It wasn't just for a special occasion. So they were seeing the piety, the level of piety, and they thought this would be so wonderful. We could bring Prabhupada here and introduce them to Prabhupada. And so they made a proposal, and Prabhupada accepted. Okay, we try, but usually when there was these Pandal programs, there were big teams of the men going out, making all the ladies helped, but the men would go out. They would collect funds. That was the basic thing to put on these big programs. It was like a lot of rupees. It cost a lot. And the men would do that collecting mostly. So here you had, and there would be teams, and those went out with the books and making the invitations, making the, the promotional. Like Shamsundar was really into making some kind of like big Western style promotion, to get people's attention. Got a great big billboard, and in Bombay and filled it out. So people would come. So, but just the two girls, but their appeal was because they were so devotional, people were attracted. And so they were coming forward on their own, providing the funds, providing the means for getting the venue, which happened to be in Radha Govindesh's temple, when he would first come in. So to celebrate Prabhupada's arrival in Jaipur and to kind of add a little bit of enthusiasm and excitement, so the day before the big program, they were going to have a very, well, let's get the leaves out of the way. Even though it sounds kind of awful. I noticed on the leaves when they came in, it's another one everywhere. So anyways, they were gonna have a parade, and Prabhupada would be honored in the parade. And so they thought, get an elephant, put Prabhupada in the elephant. But it happened to be, it was January wedding season. All the elephants were already rented out. We couldn't get an elephant. So then they thought, we'll get a beautiful white horse-pulled, chariot. There was no white horse, there were no horses available. So then they ended up with a bullock, with a bull. Was probably an oxen, actually. And the poor guy had a missing horn. And, humble part, but didn't matter. And for some reason in my heart, so Prabhupada sat down, it was like, for him, he was not attached, whether he had the elephant, the horse, the bull, he wasn't attached to that. And I was thinking, I would like to sit there behind Prabhupada in that car. I don't know why I saw like that, because I generally didn't have that mood, but I was thinking, I would like to sit there behind Prabhupada. And suddenly Prabhupada turned to me and said, bring Saraswati. That's my daughter. And he had her sit with him on the cart, and I was really so pleased. Yeah, so, and then Prabhupada talks about how in India, of course now things have changed a bit, but at least in those times you could come, a sadhu could come, and there was no holds. You could go to anybody's house, knock on the door. Now you can't even get to the door. You have to buzz a bell, and they don't know you, or you're not getting in there. But then there was a time people would have dogs, right? So like the dog. So, whoops, even the sadhu would have to back off. Yesterday we were listening to a recording about, are you familiar with Jumana? Jumana's in Malati. So her and her dear friend in devotional service, they had gone up to some hill station high up in the Himalayas, like about 6,000 feet. And they had been given a recommendation for a place to stay. And it was, so they get there to the name of wherever the place was. They get a taxi, they tell them where they want to go. And of course, they don't speak English. The taxi driver was a young guy, and they don't speak whatever they were speaking there. But they had the address. And suddenly the road is just like a narrow little path on the side of one of those big mountains. Like if you sneezed, you might fall off, disrupting. So then far in the distance is this like little place or some place, and there's no lights on, and there's nothing else. So that must be the place, the hotel. And there's a big fence, and there's a sign on the fence, but they can't read the sign because not their language. And the driver was saying, no, like he was going like this, and he was going, no. But they couldn't understand why. They said, we've come here, that's the address. So they go in, they open the fence, the gate, and they start to go in, and all of a sudden, two huge dogs come charging right at them. And they were very seriously like big, mean looking dogs. And then they kind of like, they realized this could be very dangerous. So they didn't make any quick motion. They just kind of started back, slowly turning around and walking. And the dogs kept coming. And they were going, Krishna, 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 but softly. They didn't want to, Krishna, 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 Krishna. And somehow they got out of the gate and closed it. And the dogs are like there. And they got back to the town. And then they made another arrangement to stay. And then this gentleman came to see them. And it turned out he was the owner of that place. And I don't know why it was closed down like that, but these two dogs were some kind of Chinese Magstaffs. They were guard dogs trained to kill, and they had killed. And he wanted to see these girls because, do I have it right so far? So how could these women go in there and escape with their life? In other words, he wanted to see them because such a thing had never happened before, So that was an odd situation. I mean, considering for India, beware of the dog. I went to South Africa a few years ago. Went on a tour, went to Johannesburg. And the first thing that kind of tipped me off that things might be a little different was when we left the airport and we're going down this road, there was a red light and the driver went right through it. Then I thought, well, maybe it's different here. Maybe red means go. So I asked him, what's the case? You don't stop, you go. And no, Mataji, carjackers. So if you stopped your car, you risked your life. These people would come, and if the door was locked, didn't matter, they'd break the window. And if you didn't get the heck out of your car and give it to them, you'd get killed. It was a daily occurrence there. And then we get to the temple, and there's a big fence with barbed wire all around it. And we get to where we're going to stay. There's a big fence also with barbed wire around it. Big gates, electronically operated, and two dogs inside. So I said, why did your pets? Oh no, guard dogs. Everybody had guard dogs, it's like, because it was such a volatile situation there. And I remember before going, we were having these preparatory phone, Zoom phone calls, and myself and Vishaka Devi were like the ones going, and they kept saying, so you can't go out and walk, it's dangerous. You can't leave the compound, you can't leave the town. I'm thinking, what is this, But actually it was a fact, we were prisoners in the home, we were prisoners in the temple. Anyways, here it's being pointed out though that, and the only people that didn't have guard dogs and barbed wire were the poor people. So, the poverty-stricken man, by association, he becomes an interested material thing. But the poverty-stricken person, he's more like, has more freedom than the wealthy person, because the wealthy person's always worried about like, somebody gonna get me, somebody gonna steal, is somebody gonna break in? I mean, you have that anxiety. So then I could really see it firsthand. And they gave the example here about Narada Muni. He'd been the son of a poverty-stricken maidservant. His father's not even mentioned. Is there anywhere where his father's mentioned? No, but the mother was serving the sadhus during Kartik, and he would naturally help. And then the sadhus, they would leave behind remnants of their prasad. Sometimes they'd even give it to him, take something. And because of that, he became exalted from this mercy of the sadhus. And he had a real experience of transformation. And in his next life, he became Narada Muni. So this beautiful verse, Satam Prasangama Maviryam Samido, that's the prayer of Queen Kunti. One of it's the main point is one gets advantage of association of saintly persons by their instructions, one becomes more and more purified of material desires. But in the purport, Prabhupada's pointing out something interesting, that not only do you take the association of saintly persons, her devotees, but they must be actively engaged in Krishna consciousness, and he makes that point, So that's a very good point for us to remember too, because we have to perform our sadhana, we have to read the books, and we have to be, which is also an active part of devotional service, but then we must do something active, some active devotional service. There's another purport somewhere that Prabhupada makes a similar point. Sorry, I can't remember where, but that we have to engage, actively engage. Just like here, you're actively engaging in devotional service. So, but the main reason is, why do we need to actively engage? A, we want to be an example for others, but also it helps us remember Krishna. And Prabhupada points out that material life means forgetfulness of Krishna. That's, the difference from out there and in here. So, there's all these wonderful shops and stores and, the big glorious Katal Brother Palace and, all the restaurants. And I'm sure most of these people are somewhat pious, if not very pious, people. But they're, quite engaged in their material life because it takes a lot of energy to, keep going. So the same way for devotees, it takes a lot of energy to keep yourself engaged in Krishna service. And by doing that, you decrease your desires for material sense gratification. You may live in a palace, that's okay. Nobody's saying you can't. Krishna doesn't say you can't live in a palace. Krishna lived in a palace. At one point, he lived in 16,108 palaces. But the devotee will take whatever situation is there as a means for serving Krishna, not a means for his own sense gratification. In Mumbai, there's a disciple of Ram, and he's, you might say, in the rather wealthy status of life. There's a fence, he has guards, no dogs, elevator in the house, So what, and they're always having programs for devotees. They're hardcore devotees, seriously. So the first time I went there, and I was looking around the house, and I see the bedroom, the master bedroom, and I don't see any beds. There's just some rolled up mats. So here was this first, the servant had a bed. The master of the house and his wife were just sleeping on the floor. And then he had, I remember he had this driver, and the driver would always come to the programs. And, like in India, that system, if it's somebody's your servant, they're your servant, you don't sit them at your table. But he would invite the driver into the programs, and he had prasadam, and this driver was getting purified. And finally, the driver became initiated, so he was the godbrother of his master, and they would dance. Together. And I was just recently in Kartik. I was in India, and I went to Swami, and I was saying, I was asking how that person, the driver, was. And now he's elderly, so he's retired from his driving, and he's been, he's master, his godbrother, to make sure he has a good situation. But the whole point of life is Remember Krishna, don't forget him. And that's what's going on here in this verse. And it's explained that unless you can actually purify your heart, you can't get rid of this blazing fire material existence. To just find yourself, okay, how many people are coming in this area every day to this? And how many people come through our doors?
Very small.
There's a lineup to get to the Patel Palace. How many people are coming here, By your grace, I'm sure there are people coming, but the proportion is probably not the same, So that's due to that Mahabhidavani, the fire, material, blazing fire of material existence, And the surefire way, like here, where are your fire extinguishers?
In the kitchen. Fire.
Huh?
In the kitchen.
Okay, that's good. You probably should have out here too in case something happens. Anyway, we have the best fire extinguisher. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And we have to keep, it's like the car. You have to keep putting the gas in, or if you have one of those electric ones, you have to keep charging it. Otherwise, they're just going to come to a standstill. And it's the same thing for us if we don't keep recharging our spiritual life with the holy words, holy Mahamantra, the holy name, then we slow down. And then that blazing fire starts up again. And we start finding ourselves attracted to unattractive material things. So take the mercy of the Bhagawatam, take the mercy of Mahaprabhu's program, Sri Harinam Sankirtan, take the advantage of the association of the devotees. Sometimes, the fact is, you're not always gonna like everybody. That's just life. One time somebody was complaining to Prabhupada about a vibrator. And Prabhupada said it's like on a ship, you get on a ship, because Prabhupada came to America on a ship. So you're on the ship. You might not like everybody on the ship, but your business is to sit down and cross the ocean. So our business here is to cross the ocean, material existence. But because everybody we're sitting with is a devotee, we should be respectful and kind-hearted towards all living entities, what to speak of the devotees who are taking that brave step to get out of material life. So zany persons may freely associate with those who are poverty-stricken, but not with those who are rich. So it doesn't mean we don't go speaking to wealthy people, we do. Association means, like it's explained in the Nectar of Instruction, you have those loving exchanges, you reveal your heart, exchange gifts, you share prasad. Yeah, that's association. But otherwise, we can go, we can give Krishna consciousness. But even then, if it's like when you're one of the offenses to the chanting is that you don't explain the glories of the holy name to those who are, not interested, they don't want. So we give the books, we give the opportunity to chant. If they don't want, that's okay, we'll find somebody else. That's our business. But that's not like, it's like we go to Patel Brothers, we make our exchange, pay the money and go. We don't hang around unless, of course, you're interested. That's a different thing. So, thank you for your efforts that you're doing here in this place. I just want to mention something, if you don't mind, but the program, the standard program is when you is your dress and then you open the curtains in the door. At that time, you go into prayers. The arti's going on, no problem. But we don't wait till later. it's the doors open, Govinda, Mani Krishna. Go to any temple anywhere, that's standard, and that standard was given by us Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. It's nothing we made up. What happened, I can tell you, is when the six of us who went to England made the first record, the recording, the Hare Krishna record, then there was a problem with the long play. So the Govinda prayers were there. And at that time, book distribution was just kicking off in America. But we're in England and we don't have any books yet. We just have the record, we made the record. And so every day we were interested to see, because the record was being sold like in many countries, including America. And the amount of sales would be sent back to the Apple. Apple was the business of the Beatles who made the record. So their office, the Apple office, and they would tally the sales. So every week we had a score of how many of these records were being sold, which was wonderful because that meant many more people were hearing the Krishna Maha Mantra. So we decided, well, we'll send one of the records to Prabhupada. He was in Los Angeles. And it came, and the devotees were like, oh, these people, Shamsundar, Malati, Gurdas, Ramunam, Mukunda, Janaki, they left America, they left San Francisco, they went to England, and now we're hanging around with the Beatles or in Maya. So that's what they were thinking about us. So when we sent the record, oh, confirm, just see, you know. So they didn't give it to Prabhupada. And every day they would probably give their scores, right? So then Prabhupada came to know we had sent something, and he told them, I hear Shams, you know, they sent something, you know, where is it? And oh, yeah, you know, I said, bring it. US Illinois, bring it. And then he goes, I want to hear it. Oh, we don't have a record player. Prabhupada says, get one. So he had him play it in the temple. I mean, with those living prayers, he was making obeisances to the deities, and he said, I want this played every morning. So that was how that happened. So the curtains would open up, and you know, I mean, it's just anywhere you go, all around the world, you just feel that wonderful and presence of Prabhupada along with the deities, you know. And then at one point, some brahmacharis, I don't know if you know what brahmacharis are anymore, there's not too many of them around, but anyway, they were complaining to Prabhupada, every morning we have to hear a woman singing. And Prabhupada looked at him and he goes, you know, we think it would be better if we heard you singing. He's just looking at them like, and he goes, it is a chorus, because we're all singing. It is a chorus. What is the problem, you know? If you're so agitated, then you go to the forest, you know? And so, yeah, all around the world, Jamuna's voice and sound. And one time there was a big, I forget the name of it, it was in South India, but it was a big collection, gathering of sadhus. And Vasesh, not Vasesh, Vyasaki, so you may know Vyasaki, it's very good singer,
Yeah.
you know, bhajans and all. And somebody came up to him, are you from Islam? He goes, yes. And he goes, you know that record that Govinda, and this was like the big guy of the whole sadhu, you know, gathering. Can you get me one? And apparently the same thing happened to him as what happened to George Harrison. George Harrison got the record, right? The first one, not the Govinda one. This is way back when Prabhupada and the devotees made the first record. And that somehow he got one. And he was listening to the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra over and over again. In those days, the records were on a vinyl thing, and there was an arm with a needle on it. So it's going around and around, and he wore the record out. So he wanted a new one. So the same thing happened to this fellow. He wore his record out, he wanted a new one. And, you know, Vyasaki was just amazed to see how, you know, Prabhupada has infected the world with Krishna consciousness, and even the sadhus want to hear Yeah. And these sadhus were not thinking, oh, here's a woman speaking, you know, they're hearing Govinda, they're hearing Lord Brahma, you know. So the level of consciousness is very important, and we can keep our consciousness on the upside if we stick to the principles and chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra regularly every day. And here are the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Hare Krishna.
Right.
I have a question. So, many devotees also have dogs, and many devotees have dogs. What was Prabhupada's take on that?
Well, initially, we actually didn't really have, not too many had real jobs. Jayananda was one of the first, he was driving a taxi. But there was at one point in the temple in San Francisco, second temple, you know. Oh, we can go back to New York. I'll tell you San Francisco in a second. So back in New York, Saxon, he had a job. He worked for the city welfare department, human resource department, something like that. Brahmananda, he got a job because you have to pay the rent. I don't know if you pay rent or mortgage, you have to pay something, right? So it means somebody has to have a job of some sort. So the same thing. So at one point in San Francisco, we didn't have the money to make the rent. And then there's that story that you may be familiar with. That one day Shamsundar and I came out of our apartment, and Shamsundar was just like, what are we going to do? We needed $700. We had some back rent too. We needed $700 and no idea how we're going to get it. And all of a sudden we saw $100 bills going down. It was on a hill. It was Ashbury Street. We were on this hill. Going down the hill, and we just started grabbing these bills, and we got $700. So that was Krishna. You could say the Krishna magic. But then we, you know, so that covered that situation. But then we had a meeting with everybody. You know, this isn't going to happen every time, every month. So then the devotees all went out and got jobs. Every single one of them, even the brahmacharis, they got jobs. And they gave their money. Of course, the grihastas, we had to pay our rent, but the brahmacharis didn't, you know, so they gave their money over to the temple. In England, we had a place that we were staying, and it had some, you know, there was some expenditure. So and we weren't allowed to work legally. Under the table, some work was going on because something, you know, just to buy the boba and all. But, anyway, there were some young people coming. There were some young people coming, and they became attracted. They wanted to become part, you know. And then they saw that we actually needed money. They like were feeding them every day. They knew food cost money. They knew food cost money, for example. So they went out and they got jobs flat cleaning, like cleaning apartments. These jobs are kind of easy to get, and you know you could work or not work. It wasn't like you had to clock in. So they were doing these flat cleaning jobs, and they get paid weekly. They were giving over. It wasn't. I mean, you worked like anything. You just got like 5 pounds of wheat. It was pitiful little amount of money, but they happily did it to contribute because they were finding such a wonderful experience to be part of temple life. So another one, you know, Gopal Krishna Goswami recently departed. So when he came to ISKCON, it was in Toronto. Sorry, what's the other one? Montreal. And the temple there was in an old bowling alley up one flight of stairs. So he had been, he was working for Pepsi Cola. He was the chief marketer for Pepsi Cola. Like, you know, Pepsi Cola. So but he had some desire for spiritual, a lot of spiritual knowledge. So on the weekends when he wasn't working, he was going around to all the different places, even Christian churches. And ISKCON was one of the places. And he went one day and he was like the only Indian body person practically who came. And the devotees told him, tomorrow our spiritual master's coming. So he came back, and Prabhupada noticed, just like Prabhupada sat and listened to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He didn't go out and doing other things. And Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta said, I have noted him, meaning our Prabhupada, he listens. So our Srila Prabhupada noticed that this young boy, his name was Gopala at the time. So this Gopala, he listened. He was not falling asleep. Well, some of us were, but he wasn't falling asleep. He was listening, and then he would get up, and he had a suit on. And then after the morning, he would take his briefcase and go to work. And then he'd come back again in the evening. So Prabhupada started giving him engagement, engaging him in devotional service. And at one point, he asked, but he was working, and of course, the thing, you're working, you have to send money home to India. Does anybody here not send money home to India? Everybody must send, unless your parents are here. So he had that obligation. And at one point, so he's giving money also to the temple. At one point, he asked Prabhupada about maybe I should, stop this job, particular job, and move in the temple. And the temple, my God, it was a farmer bowling alley. There weren't any kind of rooms. So the rooms were, they took like rope, put rope across, like one way and other ways, and then they put hang sheets with a clothespin. So you had these rooms. I mean, we're talking basic here. So, and he was maybe I should move in and, stay with the devotees, knowing full well what that meant, So Prabhupada wrote him this beautiful letter, and he's explaining to him that, that his job, he was serving Krishna. And he says, you're not a karmi. He said it twice, and you're not a karmi, So the work, if it's done for Krishna, you're not a karmi, it's devotional service. If it's done simply for your own satisfaction and satisfaction, then that's another thing. Does that answer that question? Your question was, what did Prabhupada say about work, wasn't it?
Dogs.
Dog. I said jobs.
So I asked if some devotees have done.
Okay. The dogs. Got lost and then started keeping off of them or something. That just doesn't work all that well. So when I joined, I had a dog. If you look at the Prabhupada arrival in San Francisco, 67, you can Google it. There we are meeting Prabhupada at the airport. And at one point, you see this little dog goes by. That was my dog. Myself and Shamson, there we had a dog. And that dog was there at the airport to meet and greet Prabhupada. He didn't stop and pat him on the head and any of that stuff, but dog was there. And then the dog would come into the temple, sit by the door, and he was right there in the temple, So after maybe it was a week or so, I don't know what the time was, but we were going out and Prabhupada, and the dog would still respectfully, never barking, never made a noise, he didn't try to push you, wait for everybody to go out, and he'd go out. Prabhupada's going out, and he stopped, and he said to us, perhaps it may be better if the dog stays outside. So he said it in such a way, but we understood that. So then from that point on, the dog would stay outside. Now, did you know that Bhaktivinoda Krishna had a dog? Bhakti Vinod had a dog. You know the name of Bhakti Vinod's dog? It's Tiger. Did the dog go in the house? No. He stayed outside. He did, he stayed outside. You know, dogs can do, there was a dog in New Vrindavan, and that dog would come when Prabhupada, it wasn't the temple we have now. That wasn't there when Prabhupada was there. It was a smaller thing. The dog would like get up on his hind legs and look into the temple when the kirtan, and he would, he was trying to chant. When he didn't bark, make this, it wasn't even barking low. He was like trying to join the kirtan. And Prabhupada noted that, Laos in the country, they can, they have business, they can keep away certain pests and all. But Prabhupada noted this dog, he was trying to chant, and it, of course, was eating prasadam, so his future life was looking pretty good. And then one more dog story. Again, this personal experience, but we, for the first time when we went to Vrindavan, with Srila Prabhupada, we went with him, he brought us after a big program in Delhi. And we just, every day we'd go to one place, it was a bus. And we would go on a bus to one place, or two or three, but we would go to Prabhupada, would say a few words, and generally prasadam would show up, or else we would go back to where it was called Sharaf Bhavan. It doesn't exist anymore. Now it's a great big fancy hotel, and a bank, but at that time it was a very nice private residence. And we went one day out to Govardhan. And the day before, actually, we had gone to Radhakund. So could we tell that story? But we go to Radhakund, and all the devotees started jumping in the water. I mean, not just jumping in, they were diving in, splashing around, the men and the women. I was the only one who didn't do that because I can't swim. Otherwise, I would for sure have done it. So Prabhupada was coming back. He was like so shocked. Just playing around in the water. So he was like, this is wrong things, you talk in prayers, and so he said, never again go in the food. That. It's like you tell a kid, go stand in the corner and don't move. Don't ever go in. Anyway, so the next day we went to Govardhan, and I was cooking for Prabhupada during these excursions. So the bus pulls up and there's two kunds. And I don't remember which ones they were, but we got up, Prabhupada said, men there, women there. There was two kunds, one for the men. We weren't going to have another Radhakund spectacle. So I had to go do the cooking, and there was a veranda, very freshly painted with, with these doors, and a cement little porch and all. And Prabhupada walks over very confidently, and he opens the door, and I'm like really curious what's behind, what's going to look like behind the door. The whole thing was just a facade. I don't know why it was there like that, but it was just the fields. The thing. There's several doors, a long veranda, and then behind it was just the fields. Prabhupada steps in with his servant, and he's going to have his massage and his bath. And then I brought my cooking stuff, and I sat down on the veranda, and somehow no monkeys came, and nothing happened. I managed to cook. And I realized I was a little short of vata. So I was a little nervous because I'm not the world's best chapati maker. So, if there was a blue one, which there would be for sure, means it wouldn't pop up. I didn't have a lot of extra vata to make more. So I was a little nervous. But anyway, Prabhupada comes out. I got everything, everything was ready. And I bring the plate. And the men are on one side, ladies on the other, Prabhupada's in the center. I put the plate down. All of a sudden, these two dogs you know, like, now dogs are looking a little better in India, but in those days, they practically had no hair, just little spotches of hair, torn off ears, broken tails, wounds on their bodies. And they were making just the most horrible, and they're coming straight for Prabhupada. And the men were like, that there was enough, you say, grab your stick. And I'm like half bent over to them, was just about to put the plate down, so I was just standing up, so I'm kind of bent over, and I'm like, what to do? And Prabhupada's telling everybody, the women said, everybody was like ready to do something, but we didn't know what. Meanwhile, the dog's coming closer, and Prabhupada's telling us to sit down. Because he said to sit down, they had to sit down. But then the dogs were right there in front of Prabhupada, and he picks up one of my puffed up chapatis and tears it in half, and he gives each dog a piece of the chapati. And the little dogs suddenly, they took that roti, and then he goes, jow, jow. And he turned around with the broken little tails of the chapati in the mouth and just left, But then this instruction, he goes, you have to be careful. You never know who they may be. He's referring to the dogs. The dogs of the dog, you never know who they may be. But keeping dogs as pets was not part of the program, particularly if they're going to be in the house, And of course, if you have kids can be really like, I want a dog, and the parents are no, I want a dog. So sometimes a parent gives in. I know because they told me this, Anyway, but dogs are also living entities. Trees are living entities. Every living entity deserves the mercy. But every living entity, you can't teach the trees to chant the Bhagawatam sloka. So the mercy comes by giving some water and maybe even some maha water, according to the situation and the particular type of living entity. If got a dog, you can give him some maha. And then jap.
Yeah, some devotees have interest in dog and they give excuse that Krishna had a dog in spiritual world. Krishna has dogs, why we cannot have dog?
Because you're not Krishna. Dog outside, that's all.
This.
Mentioned about the
Yeah.
Govindam prayers.
Normally we have Govindam prayers as soon as we open the curtains. Today we were a little disorganized.
Since I asked somebody, no, do that one, but okay, good. And then when I came in, there was a cell phone in Prabhupada's Vyasa. Now, I was
There was a what?
pretty sure Prabhupada
Cell phone.
doesn't have a cell phone. So we need to keep our personal paraphernalia separate from, These type of things are like, it helps us develop our, that we become conscious of it. It helps us, to develop our consciousness. So this is Prabhupada here. If you just here's some statue that's, then you can do anything, but this is Prabhupada. And he's kind of come here to your beautiful little place to encourage you and teach you instruction. So we should be careful how we, are treating them. And one other thing, please pardon me if you get offended, but that carpet in front of me, it's like really, looks like thrift store bargain carpet. Just all raggedy looking.
Which one?
So again, he's got this beautiful place, marble everything, gorgeous Vyasa sign, so I don't know, that's not too attractive.
Get rid of it.
That's a lot. 7 feet of so many devotees on it.
But it's
Well, that one there is up to you, but this was right in front of Prabhupada and it's raggy looking and it's like, really?
Right.
And then I have a question about Cedar Rama and Harman. Are they being worshipped or?
No, these are the when there was during Ram Navami, we just brought them here for,
So,
but they're not being worshipped.
more like Utsava deities.
Yeah, yeah,
So when the Utsava is over, they should not be just standing here. Often did not want deities that weren't being worshipped, as he would say, standing on the shelf collecting
Okay.
dust. Because then it looks like, you know, well, what does this mean? But here we get it, they're being worshipped.
right,
You know, and we want people to understand these murtis, here's Krishna, the Srinivada, there is the Srinivada. It's not just a beautiful stone statue, the same with the beautiful body type. You know, so then, okay, why are these ones just standing here? So, you know, for our own consciousness and because this is a preaching center. So what you do is what we're teaching people. You know? So when, like in many, even in Vrindavan, they have deities. We used to have Cedar Ram actually, Cedar Ram, and that's another story. But they're in Tuaco now. So we have another set that on the Parents' Day, they come out. And during that time, they're worth they're not, but otherwise they're, you know, they're kept. In the majority. Otherwise, people just start seeking statues of deities and they're not seeing, here's Krishna, because they're not being worshipped, you know? So these things are kind of like subtle and not subtle at the same time. So way later than it should be, so. Thank you very much, all of you, thank you very much.